If you just have them as election day talking points, you're not going to break through the funding disparity. You're not going to break through the media bias. You're not going to break through the independent voters.
Welcome back. That was former White House advisor Stephen Miller on this program weeks ago on Republican talking points and why he says they cost the GOP big. A bigger majority. Ronna McDaniel is seeking another term next month as chair of the Republican National Committee. She has the endorsement of 107 of the 168 members of the RNC, in which a simple majority is needed to win re-election. The support comes despite the lack of an expected red wave in November's midterms, with McDaniel overseeing Senate losses in those key battleground states, as well as losses in a number of pivotal governor's races. While Republicans did win the House, they did it by a smaller margin than projected. Joining me right now is the chairwoman of the Republican National Lawyers Association. Harmeet Dhillon is here. She is challenging Ronna McDaniel for the chair of the RNC. Harmeet, thanks very much for being here. What are your plans to take this?
Well, thank you for having me, Maria. First of all, she had 107 on her list before I entered the race, and actually those numbers have dropped significantly, and I went from 0 to several dozen just in less than 2 weeks. So it's been very encouraging to see the support amongst members for change. But I think stepping back, the chair has had 6 years of leadership, and in those 6 years, we have successively lost the White House, the Senate, and the House, and now barely performed in this promised red wave. And so I think it's time to thank her for her service and move on and try something different. And that's what I offer. In my 3 decades of experience as a Republican election lawyer, an activist, and an activist even before that, I have a demonstrated track record of success. And more importantly, I understand that as our electoral landscape has changed and we have more ballot harvesting, early voting, and other innovations in the law, whether we like them or not, our party has not evolved at all to try to combat that. And so I feel like when we're talking about getting our voters to vote on Election Day, we're doing AOL dial-up from the 1990s, and the Democrats are in the fiber optic era. And so what I would do is bring our party into that era. I also think that some of the failures that we've had, Maria, have to do with really poor and reactive messaging, despite the fact that we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on fancy messaging experts. We've been really playing catch up with the Democrats and letting them set the agenda. So we don't need to do that. We need to have our own clear talking points and messages that are independent of any candidate or any particular interest, and really be leading and inspiring today's Republican voters who are different than the Republican voters of 20 and 30 years ago. And so if we don't change and adapt, Maria, we are simply going to die as a party, and our country can't afford that. So outside the RNC, there's been a huge groundswell of support for my candidacy, including from federal elected officials. And so I feel like with 6 weeks left to go, we have plenty of time to message and make sure that everyone understands what's at stake here. What's at stake is the future of the party.
Super donor Peter Thiel was interviewed recently. He said that the U.S. midterms were a depressing disaster for Republicans. And I just do not understand how it is possible that the GOP hangs on by a hair of a majority in the House and loses the Senate, given the fact that the reality of this agenda, the Democrats' agenda, has meant a fire everywhere you look that needs to be put out. Wide open border, crime spiking, inflation at 40-year highs, not to mention clear abuse of power with the FBI, CIA collusion with social media companies and the general media. So how is it possible that voters are not responding more aggressively to the GOP?
Well, you're absolutely right. And we should have had a historic pickup here. And, you know, it blows my mind that, you know, our leadership is supporting this failed RNC leadership, because we had the opportunity to message clearly on these issues. We had the opportunity to appeal to our voters. We had the opportunity, after learning from the 2020 midterms how the Democrats changed the rules and used all these new methods, ballot harvesting, early voting, and really just, you know, collecting people's ballots, not focusing on emotionally appealing to voters for Election Day. We did not do any of those things. We didn't emotionally appeal to them very well. We did not have candidates that fit the districts. We allowed Democrats to pour hundreds of millions of dollars in dark money spending into our races to define who our candidates were going to be. We had no plan to combat that, and I don't think we have a plan under the current leadership for the next 2 years, and that's a presidential cycle. And so unless Republicans are addicted to losing and want to continue losing, we must make changes in our leadership. And I can't vote for the leadership of the Senate or the leadership of the House, but I can vote as a member of the RNC for changed leadership there. And again, this is not about a personality. This is about what we did for the last 6 years has led us to this disastrous place. We must do something different. And I have a specific plan on how to do that. I've shared that with the members, and I've been talking about it all over the place. And, you know, outside the RNC, tens of thousands of voters have contacted our members to tell them why we need change.
All right, Harmeet, we're going to be watching this. Thanks very much for being here. RNC Chair candidate Harmeet Dhillon joining us this morning. Thank you so much. We'll be watching.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.